All right, we're live. We're live. So there might be some people here trolling and or like, you know, if Jimmy knows more, he'll certainly come in here and troll. But anyway, so this is the continuation of Philip's journey to read the books of Babel. And this time we're hosting it on my channel. So you know who I am. And this is Grace, Ben, Johan, and Philip. They can introduce themselves real quick, but you probably watched the first one. But go ahead, Grace.
Well, I wasn't in the first one, so.
Oh yeah, so never mind.
But yeah, so my channel name, as you can see on the screen, is my name, Grace Dion, and I read mostly adult fantasy with a sprinkling of some other genres here and there. And it has been a minute since I read the books of Babel, probably like a year and a half or more, but they were like some of my favorite books, so I was very eager to join this journey, and I'm excited to talk about it.
Cool. Ben.
Me and Johan are also in this journey, I think.
Yes,
but
we
mostly
are.
it's Philip,
I was
and then
about to
we're
say
just
that.
tagging along. So that's what we are. We are Philip's roadies on this journey through
Basically.
the series.
Moral support.
Wait, who's next?
Johan's next. Sorry, Johan.
Yeah. Well, I have wanted to read the series for a long time. So, yeah, now I finally have an excuse. So, yeah, I'm really excited about it.
Philip.
Yeah, no, I'm Philip. My YouTube channel is all about fantasy, the best of fantasy. So I had to read this series because Alan was screaming and yelling about it, and I just thought, okay, I better read this to make Alan happy. So that's why I'm here. But I also like it a lot so far. So.
After 3 years of me yelling at you about it, like,
Yeah.
I'll finally read it.
Yep.
Also, speaking of Josiah Bancroft, he just on his Patreon today posted pictures of his the possible cover of his new book, The Hexologist, coming out, and he has a stack of arcs. And I was like,
He must give you one. It'll be outrageous if you didn't get
I'm
one.
so excited about the next series. It's like a husband and wife, like occult investigator team.
And does he lose her?
Probably not. I mean, I think if that happened, like, people would be like, Bancroft, what's going on? Like, are you and your wife okay? Like, are y'all okay?
Like, are you drawing from some real life trauma here?
Exactly. So Nancy's supporting us. Ben's here. Esme's here, and yeah, book 3 is good. So I have not read it in a hot minute either. It was one of the first series I read when I joined BookTube, and but I think about Senlin pretty frequently, and I always talk to people as they're reading it. So Armor of the Sphinx is one of my favorites. Yeah, I like how it opens up. But anyway, so we can talk non-spoilers. Like, so we'll talk with the 3 who hadn't read it before. First, Philip, what did you like? Just general thoughts on Armor of the Sphinx. You were pretty positive on Senlin, so on Senlin Ascends. So what did you think of the book 2?
I loved Senlin Ascends. Continue to love the series in Armor of the Sphinx. The biggest difference to me is Armor of the Sphinx reads faster. It was for me anyway, I experienced it as a very quick read. I was engaged the whole time. Love the development of the characters. A lot of the other who seemed like secondary characters in the first book now got a lot of space and development, and I love it. And I love the relationships that are developing between these characters and the tensions that are developing. I mean, it's beautiful to see the relationships flowering, but also some tensions as a result of those budding relationships. And as they continue to work cohesively toward the main goal, which was outlined in the first book, so that's not a spoiler, the main goal being Senlin recovering Maria, his wife. But they also have their own individual goals and aspirations. And so even as they work together, there's this tension with some of their other goals and some secrets between them. And all of that makes for really great psychological development of all the characters and their relationships. Plus, there's some unfolding mysteries going on here with the tower itself and some of the entities. It is called the Arm of the Sphinx. So that doesn't make it a spoiler to mention that we learn more about this mysterious figure, as well as other important players in the tower. and we learn more about the tower. So yeah, just a lot of really cool stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the double meaning of the name of the title, the Arm of the Sphinx. Like it is both the person and the limb. So yeah. Johan, what were your thoughts? You were pretty. You were not negative on Senlin, but you weren't.
It's one of the strangest reading experiences I've had this year, because the first 70% I absolutely loved, and I was thinking this is gonna be a 5 out of 5 star read for me, up to 70%, because I think it seems like Bancroft's writing just suddenly improved significantly in the way he fleshes out the characters, the way he describes environment and atmosphere, and the characters just felt so much more real to me, and the revelations about the tower, everything just worked beautifully. But I don't know, the last act, suddenly Senlin, he just disappears for one reason or another. And now it seems that Bancroft, he wants to tell a whole nother story than actually the one I kind of wanted, which seemed to be a story that is much more epic in scale. And I have very, very mixed feelings on that turn of events. So yeah, overall, first 70%, 5 out of 5 stars. The last act is maybe more like a 2 or 3 star. Just because I'm very mixed on it, and I'm very worried now about the direction of the series and whether I'm gonna hate the next 2 books. We will see. So, but yeah, I can definitely go more into detail later on about that.
I gotcha. Ben?
I thoroughly loved this book, honestly. After like feeling iffy about the first book, the second book, I think like the expansion of the series works so well in this, from like the narrator voice and who we're following, down to like, I think Bancroft may be one of like the riskiest writers I've read. Like he makes so many choices between books, or between even like with what didn't work with Johan, like making choices that can really turn people off, and some of those work and some don't. But for this book, they really worked for me. So I think it's a book that I think just from appreciating a writer, I think because it's self-pub, just someone being like, you know what, I'm just going to go for it and tell what I want to tell and just do whatever I want. And I think it's hard not to read that and kind of fall in love with someone just flexing their muscles in the writing craft. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think I absolutely think you're absolutely correct that he just is like, you know what? Let's roll the dice and see what happens. Daniel Abraham, I think in Long Price Quartet does that like several times as well. Like, you know what? Let's just do this. And it, you know, as we know, there are plenty of people who don't like that series. But Bancroft himself has said that like he wanted to make each book like different, like he didn't want them all to feel the same. And so this is, you know, this is different than book 1, and book 3 and 4 are also different than different. Is it different than or different from? Different from each other?
Either way, but from is a little more clear.
Okay, different from each other. How did I have an English like lapse? But yeah, no, I mean, I agree, and I also understand what Johan's saying. That's why, like, I don't know whether to say that the next book is better or worse with what you're. We'll see specifically what you didn't like first, and then I can be like, ooh, or no, don't worry, it'll be fine. Grace, do you remember your thoughts on when you read this one the first time?
Well, first I was going to comment on kind of what the rest of you said, because it's kind of like 2 sides of the same coin, where he might make a risky decision and then it either really works for you or it really doesn't. Because I feel like my experience was the same as Philip's, where like, well, the first 3 books of the series, to be fair, were all like a full 5 stars for me. I loved them. But I also had the experience where Arm of the Sphinx felt like it read faster. And I think it's because like with the change of scenery and like the choices that he made, for me, it was like momentum building and like the ball kept rolling and like I was enjoying myself. And so I like flew through it even faster. And then if you didn't like the choice, you might not have that same experience. But I also loved the expansion of the characters. I don't know that we're going to name names yet, but there were a few in particular that I like really fell in love with. And then that continued to expand in book 3. And like, I don't know, I was so pleased with the development of the secondary characters, because I do love Senlin as a character, but then the way that he expanded the world, I feel like he also needed to expand his cast and like the perspectives that people are bringing to that world to help the reader like further understand it. And like, I think he did that really well. I don't know. I just remember loving it. Like I read it in probably like 3 days. So it was a whirlwind even the first time I read it. I just had so much fun.
Yeah. I had the same experience as you, Grace. Like I loved book 2, but I loved book 1. But again, that was my attachment to Senlin. If you're attached to like, if like we're gonna go to a new ringdom and discover that like if that is what, because I've heard this actually recently with people who have enjoyed the first one, like, but that is not book 3. That is not book 3 at all. Book 3 is like the characteriest, because it's, you know, it's the characters just being them, while also, you know, continuing the plot. But it is, you know, it's different than this one. This one felt the most swashbuckly of the 4 for sure. And I don't know if that's just because they're pirates, you know, at the beginning or whatever. But I loved this one because of it just made me like the characters even more. And watching old Senlin try to be a pirate captain, like he's trying to do his best while also trying not to be a super criminal. Like he's trying to be as little of a criminal as possible, you know, like when they take over that old guy's floating house or whatever, like at the very beginning. He's just out of his depth. Like he's like, you're like, Edith is so much more competent than you at this. Like, but everyone is deferring to you because, I mean, this is really here in book 2. This is really your thing. Like we're along for your ride. So, you know, why shouldn't you be? It's like what I'm doing right now. Like this is Philip's thing, and I have literally commandeered it and am leading the discussion when it really should be Philip. That's because he started it. But that's what it feels like. It's like, you know, they made Senlin the captain because, even though as we continue to watch, it's like, Edith is so much better suited for this than you are, boss. You know, but I love Mr. Winters. So like, this is the book that made me love Edith. It did not do anything for me for Adam. I was like, I don't care, Adam. Like you lost me. You betrayed me twice in book 1. So I have not forgiven you. And then Valletta. I didn't like Valletta in book 1, but I liked her in this one.
Really? Yeah. I love Valletta. Well, maybe my feelings did grow for her after book 1 as well. But yeah.
In book 1, I was just like, and, you know, anyway. So what other general, like, I don't know what other general things we could say about it. You know, I mean,
you left out Iron.
No, I was going to talk plenty about Iron when we get to. No, I love this. This made me love the character of Iron, which, you know, like I already had a fondness for her because she didn't know how to read in book 1, but I really like here we go. I knew Evie was going to show up to talk about Senlin. Yes, Kieran, more like senile. But yeah, I love Iron also. Like and also I love Byron and Ferdinand.
I love Byron.
Yeah.
The thing is, Grace,
they're new here. Yeah.
We love Byron because we've read all the books. Like, did you like Byron in book 2?
Oh, I did. For sure.
I think that I was very alarmed and suspicious at first, but I was still very like fascinated, if that makes sense. Like his entire thing, I'm like, okay, what the heck is going on here?
I hated Byron in this book. Like, I was just like, what is your problem? Like, this douchey deer butler. Like, what is your deal?
But that's what him and Ferdinand together really work, because it feels like Beauty and the Beast. It feels like the what's it called? Like the clock in Beauty and the Beast, like that weird parallel between like innocent and someone who's just a bit of a I don't know what the right word for it is. A bit of a Byron.
A bit of a Byron.
Yeah.
And I love Ferdinand. Weird dog train. Like, when we got to that section of the book, this is where I was like, what? Like, what is going on in Bancroft's like brain? Like, what is happening in this book? Even before that, we should talk spoilers. Let's talk about spoilers.
Spoilers.
Yeah, so we're gonna talk about spoilers, guys, because we have to be able to talk about like what's happening in here, in this book. And let's just start with part 1, where they're like, you know, Pirate King, and that's where there's the tavern where at the bottom of the thing, it doesn't have a like.
It's like rope.
It's like a web, isn't it? With weird spider person or something.
Yeah.
Am I remembering that right?
No, you are. I mean, it's so he visits the friend that he trades goods with, who has a South Asian name, and then he finds out this friend has a mother down below, and he has to crawl on this all this yarn.
Oh, that's right, the yarn spider web.
It was a very highly anxiety-inducing part of the book, and it was so early on too.
Yeah,
but she's the first to realize that he is actually addicted to
crumb, is it?
Chrome.
Okay,
that's such a great metaphor, because of course he's been
testing the picture,
painting of Maria, and it's so tied up with the chrome. And the statement that Bancroft, I think, is brilliant, how he ties the chrome addiction to the painting of Maria, and the Maria that takes over his mind, not the real Maria, because we don't see her for the entire book until the very end, where Bancroft made me feel really awful.
Yes.
Because I was kind of rooting for Senlin and Edith, and I felt so guilty about Maria at the end. So, but yeah, so that's great. It's brilliant stuff. The whole chrome thing and the paint.
Well, let me ask the question, because I forgot that this happened in this book, and me and Charmaine are always at odds, because there's a group of people who are like, Alan, obviously that's where the fake Mari was coming from. Obviously, it had drugs on it. But then there's me and another group who had no idea. Like, till the end, no idea that it was like I did not figure it out until it was told to me. So you guys, and Grace, I forgot what side of the line you ended up on.
I don't know if I've ever said this, but I didn't figure it out either.
There we go.
Like, I had my suspicions that something weird was going on, but I did not figure that out. But it was, like Philip said, like such a.
I thought it was the first time it was mentioned that the painting, again, he reminded us that the painting was in that box where all the chrome was. And I thought, oh boy, as soon as the first time it came up.
Well, Philip,
I did not catch that. Like, I didn't really think much about why it happened. Obviously, I knew there was something suspicious going on. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed that aspect, because one of my biggest complaints about book 1 was that Senlin didn't feel like he had any emotional depth to him. But here we can see, like, he's really struggling with his mental health. And yeah, I really enjoyed that exploration of his feelings. Like, he became a bit more real to me in the big first part. And also, even though it's a twisted kind of image of that marriage, we also do understand a bit of how he perceives Maria, albeit in a twisted sense. So yeah, I think it's a great character development for both of them. Yeah, I really enjoyed that part. But yeah, I had no idea why he was seeing her.
Ben?
I realized, I was talking to Grace when I realized it was maybe a third of the way through the book where Philip mentions it, and I was talking to Grace and I went, there is no way this idiot has been inhaling this stuff from the painting. And I was just waiting for the whole book. I was like, I thought it was extremely clever. Because it's such a Senlin thing that when it's there, it's so obvious, and he's just like completely missed it. And it's like, come on, Senlin, you've been huffing this stuff off it all the time. But I think that makes Senlin extremely endearing in this book, because he's suffering, and you're like, it's such a simple thing to solve, Senlin. Come on, you could do this.
Yeah, and he has all those like insecurities about his like. I guess captaincy, like his leadership of the group too, and the drug addiction that he doesn't even know he has is definitely not helping with his like mental capacities, and he's keeping those secrets. But
because he's feeling inferior, he won't tell anybody that he's having these problems, and so he it just gets worse rather than anybody. Because I bet if he'd said something, any of them could have been like, there's drugs on that painting, bud. Like, it was literally in the drug bag. Like, stop inhaling the painting, and you'll
be better.
But the fact that he keeps it from them, and he does it out of insecurity, which is, I think that's pretty human. I think a lot of times we, rather than admit that there is an issue, are like, no, we'll handle it. And part of that is because, you know, of insecurities. We don't want people to think a certain way about us, or like we, like Senlin, have imposter syndrome.
And you don't want to like reveal it to somebody and then have them be like, well, this is a super obvious fix. And then you feel like an idiot.
Like, or be like, well, you're insane. We're going to throw you off the boat and we're just going to beat you. So you have no way to find your wife now. Bye. So, I mean, I get it, but it's just like dunderhead.
One of the brilliant things. Mike? Oh, hey, Mike. How's it going? One of the brilliant things I think about the whole Chrome thing with the painting is how it unleashes Senlin's. I mean, that Maria, you guys ever have a dream about somebody close to you, and that person in your dream is doing something really annoying or something, and then you wake up and you're annoyed at the person, even though it's not their fault. It was all going on in your own head. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. That's what Senlin is doing, essentially. It's not Maria. It's his projection of Maria mixed in with all his guilt. And I think you really see his guilt about, geez, I married my student. That's sort of much more acknowledged here in this book than in the previous one. Not only did I marry my student, but I lost her because of my arrogance and my prudishness.
Because he wouldn't go to the underwear section.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, he was so stuck. And that's one of the things I love about Senlin is how honest he is with himself in this book, and to the point where it's painful. But I think it's just brilliant what Bancroft does with his character and this painting and the Chrome addiction, and how that brings out all this stuff that's going on in him. Just a rich, beautifully sketched character. And it probably helps that, like Alan, I kind of identify with Senlin a bit. So, yeah.
I mean, I also love that Senlin remains a human. He has not become the Ubermensch in this book. Like, he is still just a bumbling professor who is doing the best he can, being incredibly out of his depth. But I love that everyone looks to him, and everyone does trust him. Like, they look to him, and they're looking to him for leadership, even though any and all of them are better equipped to survive in the tower than he is, you know, because he's still stubbornly hanging on to, I will not let the tower turn me into, you know.
But that's pretty awesome. My favorite Senlin moment is when the Sphinx says, okay, if you betray your crew, I'll get you Maria.
Yes.
And he's like, I'm sorry, Edith. And then you're like, no. And then you realize, oh, and he goes, I'm sorry, Edith, that I didn't believe you about how manipulative the Sphinx is. That was such a perfect Senlin moment. I loved it, you know.
Yeah. I when I first read it, I'm like, Senlin, no, Senlin. No. And fortunately it was not. It was not.
Well, that's why the crew looks to him too, though, right? Like, even though he is like not street smart, I guess, like, he is so honest, and like we mentioned earlier, he's trying to be like essentially a moral criminal. and his crew is like, well, even if he's kind of an idiot, like, we can trust him on an emotional level and on like a companionship and like partnership level. I think that's why they look to him so much, even though he shows that he's kind of not good at things.
Yeah, like, he should never be in charge. He should be like the HR. He should just be there to make sure everyone's on like the right line in terms of like no one's harassing anyone, everyth's happy. Like, he should just be in the background, just making sure all the relationships are going well. Like,
you're not doing personnel.
Yeah, like no underhanded little back gambles or anything. You're not selling us out. Like, he should just be doing that, and then he should be in charge. And he should just he should have his own little office. He can write in there and whatever. He can smell his picture all day.
Johan, what were your thoughts on Senlin in this book?
Yeah. As I mentioned, I think we just get more details, more characterization, and I really, really enjoyed the exploration between, like, just the whole dynamic. It really, really worked with me, and I think it's a big step up in characterizations from book 1 to 2. So yeah, definitely one of the highlights of this.
Who was your favorite character in this one, Johan?
It must be Edith or Senlin.
Very cool.
Yeah, probably Edith, but she just seems a bit more badass and seems to have a bigger backstory and stuff like that. Like there's way more intrigue than Senlin, who just seems to be quite a plain character until he actually rises up the tower, and that's where he starts to unfold as quite cool.
I like Edith wrestling with the responsibility given to her by the Sphinx, while also, like, you know, she's got her job that the Sphinx is trying to make her do, but also is loyal to, like, she's divided. She got divided loyalties, right, between the Sphinx and the crew, and watching her competence compared, like, just right alongside Senlin's incompetence as far as, like, you know, being captain of the ship was just like, but she never humiliated him. Like, she never, like, made him feel like an idiot. Like, she was doing her best as first mate. And I don't like infidelity in books. Like I don't like infidelity. Infidelity is not something that I enjoy. And it says something about Bancroft and the development of these characters that, like, I did not, like, I'm like, Senlin, you are married, bro. But, like, a part of me, I'm just like it was so realistic. Yeah. The development of feelings between Edith and Senlin. Like, that is exactly how that kind of stuff happens. Exactly that way. Like, because Senlin really, part of his mind has given up. Like, part of him has given up. He's not ever going to see Maria again. And that's the part that finds himself kissing Edith. And even though he's like, no. You know, like, I just think that the relationship that he makes between those two is really realistic. Like, it's very, very, like, there's nothing, like, sensationalized about it. It's not some, like I'm putting this in for the scandal. It's just two people who have suffered a lot of loss in really extreme and dangerous circumstances, relying on each other for basically survival. Who have naturally,
we're gonna bond under those circumstances.
Yeah, and they've naturally developed an affinity for one another, and they have, you know, they have a moment, like, and Edith isn't proud of it, and neither Senlin, but they acknowledge that it's there, and it's, you know, like, it's just really good. It's really good, even though I'm like, Senlin, dude, like, call it off if this is where we're going, bud. Come on. So,
well, there's also a part of that development where, like, when we were talking about the hallucinations that he has, where I think that he's going through an entire emotional journey with his guilt and, like, wonder, like, his insecurities, wondering if, like, him and Maria were kind of a match at all, like, when you learn more about their past together. And there's part of me that, well, it feels the same way as you, Alan. It's like, obviously, like, if this is the way things are going to go, like, you're going to either have to end your marriage or you're going to have to not go down this route. But I feel like the reason why part of it works is because you kind of get the sense that he's already thinking about that. Like, he's already thinking about, like, did I do something bad by marrying Maria? Like, even if we do reunite and, like, reconcile, like, are things going to go forward between us? Like, he's definitely having all of those thoughts and feelings. And then Edith is there, and they're building such, like, a heartfelt, like, partnership. And yeah, there was definitely a part of me that was rooting for Senlin and Edith, even through knowing that it shouldn't be.
Well, I am not rooting for them at all when it comes to the romantic aspect.
Good for you, Johan.
I'm like, that would be so unfair to Maria. Like she is literally lost, and now the husband is just going to be unfaithful. I mean, yeah. So I hope that doesn't become a thing, because, like, I do understand it, and I'm not, like, human beings are fragile, and Senlin is obviously in a very, like, vulnerable situation. So I'm not blaming his emotions, but I really hope he doesn't go down.
And yours is the, like, objectively correct take on that.
Yeah, you're married, bro. Like you're married. Like,
see, the thing is, Senlin doesn't know what's happened with Maria. For all he knows, she started another life. And what Bancroft does is he really tightens the screws there at the very end by showing us Maria, who obviously has been coerced into not only a marriage, but she's had a baby, it looks like. And, that means she's probably been raped by this horrible man who's kidnapped her, which just completely made me feel like, oh my God, this is awful. You know,
Duke flipping.
Yeah, and that's why if Senlin actually leaves her, like, a horrible situation becomes even worse.
Yeah,
where I'm like,
yeah. So. I'm so eager for y'all to read book 3. Like, freaking.
Me too.
Duke freaking Pell, man. Like,
well,
Ben,
I
he's halfway through,
already
isn't he?
know I don't like this guy. Yeah, I don't like this
you,
type of
you do
person.
not. I freaking hate Duke Pell.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
He's
Ben, what were your thoughts on Edith?
Well, Edith's the best.
Love
Edith.
Edith.
It's the
She
thing
is so powerful. She's so strong, like outside and internally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say about their relationship. The thing I like about how Bancroft writes it is like it feels like even he's hesitant to put in the final, like the actual kiss and everything. It's like you can see from his perspective, it's almost like it just gets pushed off and off. Like there's a hesitancy even to the author that I think plays into everything. And I think that the strength of that is, I was going to say that one of the things that I really loved about this book that isn't character related is just that we actually get all of the perspectives in this. That we, and not only do we get the perspectives, but we get like a consciousness of like going between people in the same scene, which we don't often get in fantasy now, where we are like one person says something and we're hearing the reaction in someone else's head, and we're hearing everyone's thought process around this event at the same time. And I think like it's another one of those risks that it's not something you typically read a lot now, and I think that it could have gone really badly, but it turned out going extremely well. And I think that works in scenes like that where at the same moment you're getting both reactions to this thing, and like I think it makes their relationship stronger as a result.
I agree. Yeah, I think Bancroft is really, really good at showing like these, like we're in this ridiculous Alice in Wonderland, like bizarro land, but these characters feel so real, like they feel so human, to me at least. Like, and there's two things that he does in this book that were notable enough for its lack in fantasy that I did this. One is when Valletta is crawling through the vents and she stops and she hears Irene and Senlin or some whoever talking about how immature she is.
It's Adam and Edith.
Every other fantasy book or media has her continue to crawl and she nurses that and she's so upset. Instead, she waited to listen to the rest of the conversation and is like, you know what? They've got a point, but also hears them praise her. That is so different because we're so used to that miscommunication trope where you hear half of the conversation and you overreact. Instead, Valletta can she can take that gentle criticism that they're giving and be like, you know what? I am flighty. Like I literally risked everybody to save a stupid flying squirrel. Like that's true. I am that way. But she also hears how much they care about her, which it's not common enough, and it needs to be more common. And the other thing is, Irene, a character going through menopause in a fantasy book. Like I was just like, so much. This is such a real thing that literally every woman deals with. You know what I mean? Like I just like Irene. I love Irene. Like she could have easily just been, she's the meathead muscle. She stands there. You point, I punch. But Irene, and then Edith definitely wants to make sure we talk about the relationship between her and Valletta. Like Irene is just so.
You mean Evie?
Sorry, who did I say? Edith?
You said Edith.
Sorry, Evie. Yeah, like Irene is so. I don't know. She's adorable. Like I love Irene. She is she's not used to people caring about her. She's not used to being treated as not just, the thug muscle. She's not used to people having faith in her to be better than she currently is. You know what I mean? Like, and so I just love Irene, and she's having all these feelings. She's like, why am I crying? I don't know. They just felt so real to me.
Used to being so tough that she is really concerned about what's happening with her body, and then has to kind of I like that that's what he chose, because not only does she struggle with it because she's used to being the strong one, but it's also kind of like a vessel or a strategy for her to come to realize that the rest of them really care about her, and to build those relationships and break down some of those walls. Honestly, Irene just deserves the world.
Yeah.
Well,
is it Irene that tells Adam, you're not sorry? Is it her? Is it her that confronts Adam when he's like, well, no one wants to, like, Sinla doesn't trust me because it's Iran that is tough with Adam, isn't it?
Yeah, when they're waiting at the ship for Senlin.
When they get attacked and stuff.
Yeah, when they're attacked. Yeah.
I like that. Sorry.
Yeah. Go ahead, Ben.
I was going to say, what was I going to say? Let's quickly think it through. The thing I liked about all the characters, like Irene in particular, is that this book, like, every single character we fester on their insecurities. Like hers is the insecurity of not being able to like actually show emotions and accept who she is and everything. And I do want to quickly go back to what Evie was saying, because her and Valletta's relationship is amazing.
Oh yeah.
And Valletta, I think I'm probably, she's one of my favorite characters. Valletta is there's just something about a chaotic, like, ADD character just doing whatever they want compared to, like, everyone else who's, like, some of them are really trying, and she's just like, let's see what the vibes are telling me to do this. And sometimes it works out, sometimes it really doesn't. No, I don't know. When you've got a character like Senlin, it's like, he's lawful good and she is chaotic evil in every way, and I think they go well.
It's chaotic neutral.
Ben, that's so counter to me. When I'm reading a book, the thing I say the most to characters, and I'm like, stick with the plan. Oh my gosh, stick with the plan. And Valletta,
Senlin,
every time I'm like, Valletta, there is a plan in place. What are you doing?
I don't know if everyone here has read enough Sanderson for this, but what I was saying to Ben was that Valletta reminds me of, like, Lift if she were, like, a good character.
Oh, sure.
I don't like Lift, so Valletta is, like, the good version of that for me. And so I hope that makes sense to someone.
That makes sense. I think you have a point there.
The Valletta and Irene stuff is, like, it is probably the highlight of book 3 is Valletta and Irene. It's just so good.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, cool. Wow. I love the relationship too. And I also think we need to give a little nod to Senlin for being the one who first recognizes there's more to Irene by teaching her to read. And I think he's the one that makes her feel, oh, I can be more than just the muscle here. And that's Senlin's gift, is that he has a way of seeing the best in people and wanting them to live up to that. And that's how he brings them all together. And that's a wonderful thing. In that way, he is a great leader, you know, even though he's an idiot in other ways.
One of my favorite storylines in, like, any book ever is one character teaching another character to read. It's like, that gets me almost every time. Like, I'm like, you could put that in every book and I would not get tired of that as a trope.
So good. Johan, what were your thoughts on Irene / Valletta?
Yeah, I thought it was good. I mean, it's not anywhere near as close. Like, I enjoyed Senlin and Edith way more, but I think just all the characters are so much more fleshed out. The dynamics are way more interesting than book 1, which is different. Yeah, and there's still a lot of mysteries. So yeah, I'm really excited for book 3 still, but yeah, I wouldn't say I've had that kind of experience as you guys have with Irene and Valletta. I'm a bit surprised how much you got out of that relationship from book 2, or maybe you're reading book 3 and 4 into it as well.
I'm not, but yeah, I really enjoyed it. I love Valletta's playfulness, her spontaneousness, I'm more like Alan. That is the opposite of me. So I just kind of, like, enjoy seeing it in someone else, I guess. But and I think that her spirit is something that I enjoyed in that. And then in so many ways, Irene is kind of the opposite. You know, they're the opposite in terms of age. They're opposite in terms of Irene is hardly says a word, and she's just solid, and yet there's that beautiful, you know, acknowledgement. And there's the one point where they actually say, I got a little choked up when Valletta said, "You know, I love you, Irene," and the only thing, and she gives a long speech about how, you know, and Senlin loves you too, and Adam respects you, and even, you know, goes on. And then Irene is quiet, you know, and then finally says, "I love you too."
Yeah.
And it was just, I was like, oh man. Yeah.
With I'm with you, Johan. I don't like Valletta. I basically warm to Valletta, like.
No, it's not that I hate her, and she's the one that saves Senlin and Edith, right, from the jungle.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, that scene is super badass, and like she's extremely courageous. So it's not that I hate her. it's just like she's not a new favorite of mine. Yeah, she's just like she's a solid character.
Yeah, she's never my favorite.
I think that my feelings from book 3 might be bleeding into it, like because I just have the vague recollection of like the division between the two books, and I remember a lot more things plot wise to separate them than I do like character moment wise.
Yeah.
So I know how I feel about them overall, but then I couldn't say like how invested I was after the end of book 2 per se.
Yeah. I just like Iron in this book because 1, I was like, whoa, character of menopause. Whoa. 2, she tells Adam to shut up. Quit whining, Adam. You know why she doesn't trust you? Because he's like, well, I won't do it again. She's like, yes, you will. Like, yes, you will. Like, if you're given the opportunity to choose between Valletta and Senlin, you will betray him again. Like, stop your whining. Like, stop it. And it's like, yes, because I hate Adam the most. So,
I never really wanted that to
the end.
Adam's so forgettable. Like, I forgot that he's in this. All he does is sit there and whine.
Whoa. The biggest mystery in this book is what the heck is Adam doing with the lightning dudes, right?
Yeah.
Top of the tower.
I forgot that's in this book.
So did I until I read the plot summary.
I forgot.
Yeah. So what gives with that? Of course, those of you who have read further can't say a word, but I think I thought at first they must be allied with the Sphinx, but it doesn't seem so. At least the Sphinx is pretending not to know what they are, or acknowledging that Adam's been taken away by them. But they seem to regard him as some prophesied, savior kind of thing. I don't know. But yeah, so I'm curious. I guess I'll put it that way.
And he went up there.
What I will say about the series.
Right? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah. What I will say about the series is, I think even if I hated almost everything, I would almost want to read to the end, because Bancroft, he just keeps on like adding. He gives you answers, but then he gives you like 3 new mysteries, and it's just like, how does this all work together? And yeah, I just need to know what's going on with Adam, what's going on with the tower, the Hods, and stuff like that. There's so many questions.
Adam found the pirate journal, right? That's why he went up to the
the logbook.
Yeah. He wants the treasure, partly though to help Senlin. So it's not like he's just self-centered.
Yeah.
Keep in mind that he betrayed Senlin for his sister's sake. He didn't do it for himself. He was trying to protect his sister.
Okay. Your Honor, you will instruct the witness to answer the question. True or false? He betrayed Senlin.
Twice, yes.
Okay, true. Done. And
no hesitation.
The prosecution rests. So,
if I'm not mistaken, they also go to the top though because Edith doesn't want him making a deal with the Sphinx, right?
Yeah. Edith doesn't want Adam to meet. Yeah, didn't want Adam to meet the Sphinx. Right. And it's like, no, you're going.
But Adam is into it because he thinks there's some great treasure up there.
Yeah.
But he's motivated because maybe he wants it for himself, but he also wants it to help Senlin, because he knows Senlin needs money to accomplish his goal.
So what did you guys think? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Ben.
I was going to say, it does play into Adam's character that Edith's like, was it Edith? I don't remember. It's like, we need to get him away because if you get given a chance, you're going to make a deal. And in his head, he's like, no, I'm not going to make a deal. I'm going to go get this pirate treasure. I'm going to take advantage of this different thing. And like, no matter what, he's playing it. He's got his own ideas going. And I do like for his character, the fact that he's like, I would never make a deal. I'm just going to go do this shady stuff elsewhere. It's just, I don't know. Adam, I think Adam's the same as Valletta. I could not imagine ever wanting them around in my life, but from a distance, I enjoy watching the weirdness that they put into the story, where I'm just like, what are you doing right now? Like,
Adam is the most forgettable character to me.
Yeah, I agree. And Edith, if my new pal was the main character, yes, I would. Like, if I was a supporting cast member in this book, yes, I would go with the main character.
You called her Edith again.
I think twice that you did.
Easy. Oh, well. I'll still give him crap. Like, whatever.
I don't even necessarily hate Adam. I just he's less impactful than the rest of the crew to me. My
he spends most of this book whining.
He's the most white rice.
That's fair. Yeah.
You say white rice?
Yeah, he's the most white rice.
What did you guys think of the Golden Zoo and the weird and the Hods. Like, what doesn't one Hod like shank another Hod? Like
immediately. Like,
Yeah.
the first thing that happens, you're like, oh, the Hods, and he's just stabbing him. You're like, whoa, feels like I'm in London. Like, it's crazy.
Like, what did you guys?
Yeah,
think
it's one of those things that, again, it just shows how absurd almost everything is in the series. Because literally, a guy in a wheelchair is controlling all of these Hods, and it's just like, you could probably just kill them, right, and get your freedom, but they're all like controlled. But yeah, I think again, it just shows how brutal and dark. Like, there's a real dark side to the tower, and people are just being used horrendously. And I think the Hods are probably like almost the worst example we've come across so far, because they don't even have a name. They're just called Hods.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
And
you make a great point, and I think that this is actually probably a theme that Bancroft worked in here deliberately, which is social and inequities that go way back, and what results from that, and how does that affect the people who the have-nots versus the people who are exploiting them at the top. They're literally on the top of the tower. And you have these people crawling around the insides in the tunnels and in the unknown spaces who are doing the dirty work. I mean, that's kind of our society too, in many ways, isn't it? So I feel like it's on Bancroft's part, a really brilliant aspect of the series so far. And so, I mean, you can point to any number of revolutions that got ugly. French Revolution, I mean,
sure.
these things happen. And I feel like that's kind of what's going to happen here with the Hods.
Yeah.
And
that section, like the way it's written, like I felt so just unnerved at these just people who can't read being employed to just black out books. Like it was just like, I felt so like they're not
cult. It's a cult.
Yeah, like I just felt so creeped out by that.
Yeah.
Like just like piles and piles of books with all the text blacked out. And it's like, compared to being shot at, that's like not as big of a deal. But at the same time, I'm just like, this is really disturbing. And also, I live in Florida. So also like, it's really weird. I just, the whole scene with Marat and his freaking golden legs and, all like being mad at the Sphinx and stuff just is all, I don't know. It's just, sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, in terms of kind of like setting the scene for us to get to that like Golden Zoo, is they go on a whole quest to get like books as payment, right? And you think like, like books are going to be valued, but it turns out that the reason that they want books is to like do this to them. And it kind of turns the whole thing on its head. Like they don't get what they're expecting. And then we realize how like unnerving and freaky and cultish that is, like that what they really want books for is to destroy them. And you don't really understand like what's going on or why yet. And it's just very,
Well, knowledge is power, right? And also it seems like we have two entities at play here. One that is preserving knowledge, but keeping it hidden away from everybody in the Sphinx. And then one that wants to destroy knowledge in Luke Marat and all the Hods following him. It's about the destruction of knowledge. And you've had some interesting interplay, I think, about history as well. You had the yarn spider lady talking about how history is a lot of BS, right? And Senlin being confronted with that and having to admit. So there's a struggle here over history as well. Some really cool stuff.
One thing I also really enjoy is the fact that book one, the interrelation in terms of like the tension is way more like racial based in terms of people traveling to this place. But the higher we go up the tower, the more it becomes about class, and like race no longer matters. It just becomes about this class warfare in terms of like those being put into a slave system, or those with all the money and power, those lying about it. And like I find that an interesting concept, like thematically with the tower. Like the higher you go, the more it becomes around class rather than race. And like I think the interplay between book 1 and 2 is interesting for that as well.
What are you going to say, Johan?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of things that are very interesting with the Golden Zoo part, because, well, firstly, look, Marat, he almost displays himself as this savior, like which is just absolutely messed up, you know. And but the fact then later on when they when Senlin and Ether are put in this cage and the door is wide open, and they start to discuss, are we free or not? Can we leave or not? And it's very fascinating, as also Philip said, about the analysis of like freedom and structures, and are humans like free even though the door is opened? Yeah, it's just a very interesting criticism of like structures and how maybe sometimes people want to say, oh, well, look, we have these structures, you are free, but are we really free?
For sure.
Yeah, a lot of interesting things there.
Yeah.
And
Really
then
well said.
like, and you can also like, if Marat like is Marat, right? And the Hods are, but at the same time, like, is anyone else standing up for the Hods? Like, I don't see anybody else saying, hey, what if the Hods weren't treated, you know, like these, you know, what if the Hods had some power as opposed to having to like skulk about? Like, so Marat, like isn't entirely wrong. Like the Hods are the dregs of society. Like they've no rights, none.
Right.
But he's also like most, you know, like
he's taking advantage of their disgruntlement for his own ends, like kind of packaging it in like a noble package, but that's really not.
Well, the whole time I was reading, like what it hinged on for me from Marat is like, does he believe what he's saying? Like, so the whole time I'm reading the series, I'm like, at some point, this guy's got to tell me, like, does he believe this or is he full of crap? Like, I have to know, because that will help me decide on what side I fall of Marat. Like, is he just a misguided zealot, or is he like, you know, every other politician that takes you know?
Well, he clearly has a personal history though with the Sphinx. He has the legs that were given, the bionic legs or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm calling it right now that the Sphinx, even though it's not revealed in this book, but I have a very strong suspicion that the Sphinx is the bricklayer's granddaughter, the person in the paintings, which we get a little bit more information about. Now we know it's a code. There are code that can be used to open up this giant vault that apparently has the way to improve civilization behind it. So
yeah.
Hold on. Real quick.
What I find quite fascinating is that Bancroft, like, he doubles down on the fact that it's called the Book of Babel, with it like it was actually there's a gateway to heaven, but it needs to unlock it. It's just like, I found that quite surprising, but I really enjoyed it. It makes me also wonder, like, is this supposed to be set in a very, very distant future or something? Just interesting things to think about.
Yeah, that was brilliant. I like that too, Johan. Yeah.
Did you guys catch that the receptionist from the parlor was blacking out books in the first book?
Yeah, I remember that part.
I did too.
I don't.
Yeah, it creeped me out. Like, because when it happened, like, it bothered me in the first book, and then when I saw it mass produced, I'm like, oh, well, that lady works for Marat.
Well, that was the book about the wife dealer or whatever, right? That also the subject matter of that totally creeped you out, because then you realize, oh my God, what's happened with Maria? She's fallen in the hands of one of these pimps, essentially.
Human traffickers.
Yeah, traffickers.
Yeah.
Which is also like masterfully done to hide like foreshadowing behind like a direct message. You're hiding the kind of passage, like the passive message underneath, that I think is really well done. That it's one of the things you appreciate most rereading a series, is that catching those little moments. So like knowing that one there, it makes me, depending on how book 4 goes, makes me more enthusiastic about the idea of rereading that type of picking up little details like that.
Have you read book 3 yet, Ben? Did you go ahead like you did last time?
I am roughly around halfway through it. So I with uni reading, I'm like, I have to be a certain point, otherwise I'm gonna fall behind. So I just have to crack through and go through it slowly.
Gotcha.
Paramita, one little thing I love about
this.
It's a minor thing, but I love the squirrel.
Yay! Yeah.
Was it Squid? Is that his name?
Squid, yeah, I think that's his name. Squid. Yeah. And the relationship between Walletta, it's great. I love a good animal pet companion.
I agree.
We discussed this a little earlier, Paramita, that but he's asking, what do you guys think about the idea of writing, of like purposely making each book like feel different? Like I mean,
It's
how?
risky.
Yeah, I mean, it is risky. And how do you feel about the difference between Senlin Ascends and Arm of the Sphinx? Because they are very different, at least in feel for me.
Well, it's so weird because one of my, if not my all-time favorite series, The Dark Tower, is very that. Like every book is so different from each
I
other.
love Dark Tower.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure why I haven't found it worked as well with this series yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not saying I hate it. I'll definitely continue. I'm not a hater of the series, definitely not. But
yeah, Dark Tower definitely does
I just
that.
fell in love with The Dark Tower, and I didn't care how different the books were. I actually enjoyed it since they were so different. So I'm open for it for book 3.
When he chooses to make it like Song of Susanna, I do not like it. Like, because they were so different, there are ones that I like and ones that I don't. You didn't have to wait a year for it, Johan, and then have to wait another year after it. We waited so long for Song of Susanna.
Well, we're not going to talk about The Dark Tower here, but yeah.
Dang it.
That's definitely a series that it worked so well for me that every book was so different. So
yeah,
I'm still hopeful that this will be a new favorite of mine. Cool. We'll see what happens in book 3 and 4.
Yeah, I totally agree with Johan about Dark Tower. I would say Malazan is a bit like that too. And Malazan doesn't work for you quite as well either, Johan. But a lot of big, great series, I think, kind of do that. And I think it's the author also wanting to challenge themselves, perhaps, and do something a bit different. And maybe they're thinking about readers as well, but I have a feeling it's more about challenging themselves. But for me, the two work together really well. So Senlin Ascends and Arm of the Sphinx, I feel like, yes, they're a bit different, but they're really one story still. And as you said, Alan, I think Arm of the Sphinx is more of a swashbuckling thing, whereas Senlin Ascends is the introduction to this world and to these characters, to the whole concept of the tower. So he had to do a lot of, and he did it really well and subtly, I think, in some ways, but he did a lot of world building, essentially, in the first book. And whereas the second book, and this is fairly common, I think, you got to do the world building first so that people know where they are, and then you can get the story really rolling. And the story was rolling for me in the second book.
Yeah.
I found it refreshing. Like, I think like doing it the way that they are makes it like for someone who I was a bit unsure about book 1, you hit book 2 and like the way that it developed, I found myself constantly going like, oh, this is a good decision. I'm glad that they're doing this. I'm glad that they're doing this. And like this book changes what book it is. Like in the third act, it's like, you know what? This is a completely different book now. We're completely changing the format. We're just going for it. So like even from that sense, it's extremely daring.
For sure.
Yep. Absolutely.
What do you guys think of the Sphinx? We have not talked about the Sphinx, and I guess since we're in spoilers, her whole like world of clockwork that she has, and the immense power that she has. She's basically the overseer of of the whole tower. What do you guys think of her? Nefarious? Like, do you think she's nefarious? Like she's
I think she is the inheritor of a vision from her, if I'm right, her grandfather, the bricklayer, and that she's disillusioned. You know, that there's an extent to which there was an attempt, and I love that Johan brought up the fact that, Alan, you keep going in and out of focus.
I know. My camera's having a fit. I don't know why.
Okay. I love the fact that there's this aspiration expressed in the Tower of Babel as a metaphor to create a better society, a kind of heaven on earth, that sort of thing, to find a better place. So there's this vision, but everything has gotten old and tattered, and it's just like the place is a metaphor itself for that, where the Sphinx hangs out. You can see it was grand, but it's also kind of shabby at the same time. So the Sphinx has inherited this vision that never really came to fruition. And it's trying to hold on to this, I think, and is with this hope of collecting the rest of and seizing the rest of the paintings in order to, but that's also going against the grandfather's vision, which was supposed to be collective. It was supposed to be about bringing people together. So the Sphinx is taking a more authoritarian route to this founding this new society. So I don't think that there's something nefarious so much as perhaps maybe you have a figure who's kind of broken and is trying to make things, the spoon. She's trying to make things right in the way she can, and is despaired about the ability of humanity to do it. And so is going to do it on her own.
I completely agree with that, Philip. That's kind of what I was going to say too. Like the fact that the Sphinx has become kind of like a myth, a legend, like no one has seen him/her, because obviously like everybody assumes that the Sphinx is a man, and isn't like entirely sure about this like reclusive figure. But of course you have people like Edith and the Wakemen that have like her artifacts attached to them, so the Sphinx must exist. But the fact that the tower like was this grand vision but has fallen so far just as like an allegory for humanity, like the fact that we are so like depraved and like disgusting, that you see in the first book like what the tower has become and what it is. I feel like that's where the Sphinx is disillusioned and like doesn't trust anyone else, and so is trying to like it is authoritarian in the sense that it goes against that collective vision, but then at the same time I don't even think that it's meant to be authoritarian so much as like almost like preservation, like literally cannot trust anyone else to help her with this, and so the goal is to collect it all herself through like what's the word I'm looking for? Almost like subterfuge methods, like flying under the radar and not letting very many people in on any secrets and mysteries of the tower. And it's all very fascinating. I remember I loved learning more about that in the like latter half of this book.
It's weird because I had a very, very weird vibe from it, the Sphinx, because, well, maybe it's just because I'm Christian, but in some ways she almost reminded me of how like the devil tempts Jesus in the desert, because like she says, well, I can give you a new eye, I can give you a new arm, but there's a big trade-off. And then it's interesting when Senlin is actually able to resist that. But obviously she has a lot of power and she can give people better lives in the now, but in long term they actually sell their soul. So I thought that dynamic, especially also when it's called the Book of Babel, which is a biblical story. I was just wondering if Bancroft is doing some parallels there between the Sphinx and Satan. I don't know if that's far-fetched.
I noticed that same stuff too, just from the fact that like the country they live in is like just This is the Golden Zoo. Hold on. Golden Zoo.
Oh wow.
Holy.
That is not how I envisioned it.
Well, that's an airship. This
is the entrance where they park their airship before the spiders go after them.
Is that the stone cloud?
Do what?
Sorry.
Is that the stone cloud?
That's the stone cloud.
Okay.
You have an illustrated edition of Arm of the Sphinx?
He has a super duper extremely expensive edition.
Of course he does.
This is the cover of it. That's
cool.
The airship battles or whatever.
They kind of look like butts.
The Book of Babel.
What'd you call them? Butts?
I think they fly.
They kind of look like butts. They're dirigibles. They're balloons. They don't fly under their own power.
Sorry.
Balloons.
Grace says they kind of look like butts, and Alice, they're dirigibles.
They're not airplanes.
I know.
I won't lie. I imagined it more like almost like a hot air balloon rather than to call it a cheeked balloon. It was. I wasn't expecting the twin nature of it.
They call it the bladder. Like that's what have you ever had a bladder of water that you had to like a hot water pack thing?
Yeah, no? I should have put it together, but I don't
been
know.
On campaign with the military.
I'm never going to be able to stop imagining it them as well.
Grace, I cannot unsee that now.
They don't look like butts.
You're gonna make Ellen so sad. Those books are super exclusive.
Look, it's
What?
beautiful artwork. Okay.
No, I'm just offended. Talk us back about the airships. Cinder's not flying around, being held aloft by a giant, like, butt.
Giant butt. You need to show us the picture again.
So hold on. So Grace, do you imagine that when they're flying around, like when he puts air in the thing, it goes?
No. No, I also imagine them looking more like hot air balloons, to be honest.
It's like two different balloons.
Oh my god, there's even like an explosion between the topics.
Well, that was when someone was apparently letting out some of the air and they lit a match.
Wait, it's not air, it's gas, isn't it?
Yeah, it's gas. Methane, apparently.
Oh, that is hilarious.
That just made the book a 5-star for me. That's changed the entire series.
Now it's my favorite book of all time.
Yeah.
Can I just say I liked the ending where Senlin is crawling through books?
Oh my god, I love that.
Oh yeah, we have to talk about what Johan didn't like. So
Yeah.
Yes, but that's it. Philip, have you started the book that wouldn't burn?
Not yet.
Okay, because that reminds me so much of the book. It's mad. Like that scene is almost like it could have been in the Mark Lawrence book. That exact scene. Yeah, very, very much. So interesting. Okay, what I didn't like. So it's not that I hate it, and I'm still very open-minded for book 3. But what I loved about Senlin Ascends, and also the majority of book 2, is that the story was quite focused, and it wasn't like epic or high risk kind of story. It seems like almost all fantasies, they always love to, eventually it's like the world is going to end if we don't destroy this kind of story. And I really loved about like book 1 and 2 didn't have that kind of story. It was a more focused story that was more like about an adventure. Like the stakes weren't so high that if he didn't find Maria, everyone's gonna die. But now it feels like the stakes have just been increased to something to like the tower could, I don't know, explode or something. And I'm not sure if I enjoyed that aspect because it feels like book 3 and 4 are going to be like very epic, high stakes kind of stories from now on. But I might be mistaken.
I completely agree. I complain about this all the time, is that it's power creep. Like as a series goes on, like if you play D&D, it's always this way. Like stories are almost more interesting when the players are low level than when they're high level, because once like the story goes on and the heroes have reached a certain power level, like you have to raise the stakes to where it's just like, y'all remember when like they had to struggle like to fight this bandit king because like they had 3 people and some BB guns and that's like the best they had. Like I miss those days when they could like talk to each other. I watch One Piece and anime does this all the time. The longer an anime goes on, the more likely it's not going to be about the characters anymore, because now it is world ending. I miss early One Piece when the pirate crew was just sitting around like hanging out, and now everything is just so like increased in scope. So I completely agree. Like I really like when stories are more like it's not that it's bad. It's just like it's so often has to be, the world has to be at stake. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I agree with you.
It's kind of a delicate balance to strike, because sometimes even when that like progression is happening, it doesn't feel like you're sacrificing the characters. And I feel like a really good author can still have you focus in on like your characters' stories, but then it doesn't always happen that way.
Yeah.
Chapter 100, kill God.
That's what it is. Chapter 1, it's rescue cat. Chapter 10, you got to kill. That's every JRPG. Every video game RPG starts that way. Your first quest, kill some rats in a basement. The last quest, you have to kill the villain who has become the new deity. You know what I mean? Like, it's always like that.
I imagine it's also like I don't know whether anyone watches The Mandalorian, but like it's exactly the same as that. Like the first season is so scaled down, and then by the third season, it's utterly ludicrous. And like it's the same thing. Like I prefer the small scale stories, but I would say like the third book, like where I'm up to at the moment, is way more focused, and I feel like it's what you are looking for more, Johan. So I would, of course, I don't know where it's going. It could go completely the same way as the second book and decide to go epic, but at the moment, it's become much more, like Alan was saying, more character focused again.
See, I felt like the third book balanced it really well.
I do too.
Yeah,
like the second and third books were my favorite, even though I loved book one as well. I think just because I loved like the addition, like where we were going more, like loved being along for the ride. And then maybe book four didn't balance that as well for me. Like maybe that's part of my feelings about it, but book three definitely did. So I hope you like it, Johan.
Yeah. Well, just one more thing. It's not that I hate books with high stakes. Obviously, I love fantasy. It's just at the end when he talks about like Marat is maybe hoarding or have like, do we really need to go there with what happened there?
I have no idea. Whoa. StreamYard just decided to shuffle us, cut out on Johan. Like, sorry, Johan, repeat that?
No, so I was just saying, hey, again.
Where's
We're
Ben?
back in place.
Ben is frozen.
Oh no, Ben.
That's all right.
Oh, poor man.
Yeah.
You can probably still hear us.
It's just the very last thing about when we hear about Marat, he's like creating this army of Huts, or at least it's alluded to. And I'm just like, do we need to go there? Do we need to talk about huge armies and stuff like that? I don't know. It's not that I hate big high stakes stories. I just hope that this wouldn't be it.
No, I completely get what you're saying, because that wasn't the strength of this book either. Like the mention of that, it's not what makes this book good.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, but otherwise, yeah, it was a good book. And another thing I didn't enjoy. Sorry, I know Philip hasn't talked in 10 minutes, but I really didn't enjoy the last act where Senlin is gone for like more than 100 pages. I just like, yeah, I don't know. Again, it's just raising the stakes so much, and yeah, that's just me.
Yeah, I kind of like that myself. I mean, it was different. You know, he's doing something different. Also, we haven't said anything about the epigraphs, which I think is very clever. How he works in these epigraphs about the books that either Senlin has encountered or that he's currently carrying with him.
Yes.
And there's a lot being said in those epigraphs if you look closely. So that's another just really brilliant touch on Bancroft's part. So just a general observation there. But I really enjoyed that whole, I guess, metaphorical aspect of Senlin crawling back into, it's a rebirth of a kind, isn't it? He's literally squeezed out of this space surrounded by, appropriately for a man who is a scholar and a very self-isolated individual, he's surrounded by the books. And these are books that are being hoarded. And yeah, it's a kind of rebirth for him, I think.
Are they the books of Babel?
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. Sorry.
I won't lie, I'm scared to talk in case I just pop off the screen again. But I was going to say, like, I feel like because it's another risk to split it off into like the 3 separate sections at the end. But I feel like it's kind of summarizes the whole book, that they've taken a journey together, but to come to their final arcs, they kind of need to move into smaller personal journeys through that to actually kind of reach the ending they need to. Like, as much as you work as a team to discover things, it's that personal journey, or like a small scale thing that you need to go through to actually kind of actualize that change, that I think works well in that. But it's another one, like I was saying, it's just such a risky maneuver to make it in a book that I don't know, that like there are some parts that sometimes I feel like the pace is going so fast and then it hits a wall and then you have to build up again with some of the decisions that Bancroft makes. But I feel like I appreciate the choices so much that it doesn't bother me that much.
Yeah. Also, Senlin has to dry out. Like, he's got to rehab. Like, he has to have his painting withdrawals.
Yeah.
Philip, did you see this? One old geek met a woman at a local bookstore that loves BookTube and referred to you as the nice doctor man with the jacket.
Aww, that's so nice. I'm wearing my jacket. Yeah.
I also like the epigraphs. I think the epigraphs in book Ben, are the epigraphs in book 3 by Orrin Hatcher or whatever? Yeah. The culture, he's the culture writer for the newspaper, and he is so sassy.
Yeah.
Like he's just he hates everything. Like
I've been reading them out to my housemate because they're that good.
I love the epigraphs in the third book. Like,
yeah, I remember those so vividly. They were amazing. They added so much.
Wow.
Just just imagine like the food critic from Ratatouille, like having his own like column in the newspaper, and that's what Orrin Hatcher is. He's
Perfect.
very, 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 very sarcastic, but really good, really good. Yeah,
Bancroft does those characters really well. There's Byron and even the Sphinx. So beneath that crusty exterior, there's something lovable there, and even Byron, you can already tell, has a heart down there somewhere. So
freaking Byron. So any final thoughts? On...
You know what I think it would be fun if me, Philip, and Ben gave our best guess of how the series is going to end.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Grace, do I need to take you off a video? Can you stone face?
Oh, it's near impossible to guess. I am guessing that the Sphinx will be very close to having all the paintings, but something will happen, and that's not going to happen. I also think most of the characters will get a chance to leave the tower at the end, but some will decline to leave for some reason. So, but I don't know. And I think they're going to find Maria eventually, and I'm going to guess that Senlin and Maria are going to stay together after the series has ended as well.
Philip?
Oh, gosh. I think that, Johan, that's an interesting one about some of them wanting to stay after all, even after being given the opportunity to have their freedom. I don't know. I mean, the next book is called The Hod King, so I have a feeling that Luke Marat is going to have some, at least very initial success in his revolution. Who knows? I am going to, just for the sake of it, so we have something different, I'm going to say that instead of Maria, Senlin is going to end up with Edith. So we'll see. Yeah. I have no idea. I think that the Sphinx is grooming Valletta to be her replacement.
Oh, yeah.
Valletta is going to become the new ruler of the tower, maybe with Adam's help. I don't know.
That might be the reason why they want to stay.
There you go.
Ben?
Yeah, I feel like the fall of Babel is too obvious of a literal title for it actually to fall. It has to be, I feel like it has to be metaphorical. But we've also seen with Arm of the Sphinx, he can do both. It can be the literal and metaphorical. So I am going to hazard a guess that Adam will at some point sacrifice himself and die to save Senlin. I think that from the whole journey of him, I think he will do that. I think Iron will also die to save Valletta. I think that's going to happen. I think there are certain character setups in terms of relationships and build-offs and payoffs that I think that's how I'm thinking about it more than an actual story. As a whole, I don't know. I don't know whether the tower's just going to... It's so hard to tell whether they're going to be able to build that bridge. Is it just going to fall down? Is it just a mess? So I'm just going to take the character guesses of I think out with the main characters, Adam and Iron are dying.
Good call on Iron, because it's always dangerous to have gray hair in a book.
It is. It is. All right. So any final thoughts? I'm glad that this one seemed to be liked mostly more than the first book by everybody here. I'm not sure. I think I had them on the same level because, again, like, I'm a Senlin stan. I will defend him till the end. So I've got all of my just ready to defend it against you three when y'all come out and be like, what is Senlin's deal? Like, why is he the worst or useless or something? Be like, he's useless. That's who he is. He always has been. Anyway, whose channel are we meeting on next for the Hod King? Grace's. Okay, cool, for the Hod King.
Yeah.
I am
favorite of the books, I think, so I thought I would volunteer.
I'm excited for the Hod King, and that's the first one that like almost doubled in size of the previous one. It was
a big boy. Yeah, still easy to read though.
Yeah, I agree. No, it's just long. Well, cool, guys. Well, thanks so much for meeting. I'm super pumped to see what you three think about the Hod King, because it's very, very different. So, all right. Well, if you're watching this and you're not subscribed to, all of us, subscribe. What are y'all doing? Like, subscribe to everybody. Like, what's wrong, y'all? And I guess we'll be back on Grace's channel, in I don't know, sometime in May, or end of May, early June, sometime that, and then stay tuned for the most controversial, which will be the fourth one.
Yes.
Is bound to have some opinions. So, all right. Well, thank you guys for watching us. Commenters, thank you guys so much for joining. It was good to see everybody else's thoughts on this. And we will see you guys next time. See ya. All right. Everyone else stay around while I end this broadcast.